Hello, I'm Lauren Green, and you're in the Strategy Room. A series of missteps have made for a very bad week for Donald Trump. From his comments on abortion to defending his campaign manager in the wake of a battery charge, Trump is struggling to regain momentum, and polls show him slipping behind GOP rival Ted Cruz in Wisconsin. Joining me now to weigh in are Iona College professor Jeanne Zaino and Republican strategist Brian Morgenstern. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to get your take, Brian, first, because his gaffes this week, do you think they're going to have a long-term effect on Trump? I mean, has he finally met his Achilles heel?
Well, he may have for a couple of reasons, because the focus now is on his numbers with female voters, which have always been bad, but now they're getting worse, and that's being brought to the forefront. The other is this the nuclear issue, where it cuts into his brand as a negotiator, where he says you can't take cards off the table. Well, what he's done here in basically offering nuclear weapons to countries like Japan, who never even asked for them, is putting cards on the table for other countries. It's nonsensical, and it shows that maybe he's a little out of his depth at this point in foreign policy, and as I said, cuts into his brand as a negotiator. And the larger strategic issue, though, is as the field has winnowed, he has not taken the traditional tact of being conciliatory and keeping that trajectory on the way to the nomination by making it an easier lift for supporters of other candidates to come to your side by being the bigger man, by being the nice guy, by putting the dirty stuff on hold. He hasn't done that. He's maintained the same persona, which means he's plateaued, and he hasn't grown his base. It's stayed stagnant. And so that's why the numbers going into these states with a winnowed field are not looking quite as good for him as they have in the past.
Yeah, you know, Jeanne, Trump met with the RNC chairman yesterday and tweeted afterwards that he's looking forward to bringing the party together. I mean, can he do that? And what do you make of that meeting? Is he really trying to be in control, be the presidential candidate of choice for the RNC?
That's what he should be doing. And you know, for his supporters, that meeting yesterday was very important because he showed he might be moving that direction. Unfortunately, I agree that he hasn't done enough of the pivoting that you have to do, because you're asking to be the nominee of a private organization, the Republican Party. You simply cannot keep attacking members of the party and the party itself. I mean, he's been going on the air saying he's been treated unfairly by the Republican Party, and he's keeping up this drumbeat. And whether he feels that way or not, he's got to act more presidential. And I think also from a policy perspective, starting from the APAC speech on through, he's been stumbling on policy. Look, nobody's going to be an expert in every area of policy. But when you're asked to speak at an event that important, you have to put the homework in, you have to be surrounded by people who know about foreign policy, and you have to be able to do it from a prompter. He had a very tough time in that speech, and then he was asked by, about abortion, and he stumbled on that issue in a way that managed to alienate left and right. Women, in particular, a huge problem for him. So, he's having a very, very tough week. That said, Wisconsin is maybe bad for him, but he's coming up to a calendar that may work in his favor if he can turn this around.
All right,
New York in particular.
Speaking of Wisconsin, I want to bring up the poll, the Wisconsin poll, because right now Cruz is ahead in a Wisconsin poll. Cruz 42%, Trump 32%, John Kasich 19%. A lot of that probably is because a lot of the other candidates have dropped out, but still, it's telling what's happening in Wisconsin. And Brian, I'm interested in getting your take on what do you think of those poll numbers and what it means for Trump.
Well, it's not good for Trump on two fronts, because number one, it shows that the sort of white voters who are not college educated, which are typically his wheelhouse, are not necessarily going to all flood to him. There are a lot of those in Wisconsin, and they are not necessarily going to him. Cruz is leading. Number two, it's proving up this theory that the other candidates have had, which is when the field winnows and it's Trump versus someone else wins.
Yeah.
And so Cruz is now taking advantage of all the other candidates' supporters flooding into him, and this never Trump thing is sort of coming to fruition, at least in the state of Wisconsin. And so those are the two reasons why that's not very good for Trump.
Yeah, the delegate count is not really exactly showing Trump, making a landslide here. And the fact that, he's not quite as close to those 1,230 delegates, 37 delegates that he needs, So with Cruz ahead in Wisconsin, what does this mean for the delegate count, mathematically speaking?
Mathematically, Cruz's team believes they have to win about 55% of the delegates in Wisconsin and then move this thing into the calendar. As I mentioned, New York comes up next April 19th, and then the northeastern states, Pennsylvania, where he could potentially do well. They think they still have a shot at the 1237. But the problem is, if Cruz does incredibly well in Wisconsin, that starts to slow Trump's momentum, may make the race tighter in New York than he's comfortable with, where it's proportional, and you can start having issues down the calendar and set yourself up for a contested or a brokered convention. So the math is still on his side. Look, it's not on Cruz's side. Certainly Kasich doesn't even have a shot of winning this thing straight out at this point, but it's still on Trump's side, but it's an increasingly uphill battle. He's had this horrific week. He's got to turn this around. And, speaking of Wisconsin, you don't go into the state of Wisconsin where the governor has an approval rating of 80% amongst Republicans and attack him and also attack another favorite son, Paul Ryan, and expect to get away with it.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Jeanne Zaino and Brian Morgenstern, for being here.
Thanks.
And for complete coverage on the 2016 race, go to foxnews.com. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.